Hey, you. I wanted to reach back out. I'm at a lovely little resort. I'm right outside of Lake Tahoe, just up from Incline Village, and get to see one of my mentees while I'm here, and I'm going to do some speech stuff. And I wanted to just reach back and talk to you about kind of the kitchen counter of your mind and just go over why that's a big deal. And, I like to reach in when you're kind of late at night and a little snuggly, and you can kind of think about it as you sleep. But basically, the universal anxiety of clutter is, right, what the kitchen counter of your mind is really about. And it is, when we talk about it in class, I usually say, hey, have you ever just had a crummy kitchen counter that's full of stuff, and it's got the blender and the mail and the keys and spices, and it's not just messy, it's like a mental noise, and you get that like, I can't even work here. And what I bring up in class is that the same cluttered counter exists in your mind. It's your intellectual kitchen counter. And so I have this kind of metaphor that I do, and if most people's kitchen counters are overflowing, and their mental kitchen counters are overflowing with old beliefs, borrowed thoughts, and emotional appliances that are constantly running, but not actually creating anything new. So today I'm going to talk about how to clean it off, that kitchen counter in your mind. And you can kind of take it as that critical metaphor for understanding how we think, how we create, and how we need a little empty space. And what happens is that's kind of your most valuable real estate we own, is open space. And if you're a chef and you walk into that kitchen and you don't have a workspace, you're tripping. And so when we look at why the kitchen, right? The kitchen is a critical metaphor for life, right? The kitchen is like the center of sustenance. It's in every culture, everywhere. The central kitchen is like the nexus of our health and our home. So sustenance is health. Like when we look at feng shui, the kitchen is the embodiment of a family's health and prosperity. It's where raw ingredients, our potential, our experiences are transferred into the nourishment of our life, our knowledge, our perspective, our well-being. And a messy kitchen equals clogged health, clogged energy. And a messy mental kitchen counter, it's no different. The other thing about a kitchen counter metaphor is that it's a gathering point. It's where we gather to connect, to share ideas, to give sustenance, right? If the counter is blocked, the flow is blocked. So if your mind's counter is blocked, we can't fully connect with ourselves or with the other people, or even fresh ideas that you just don't feel like opting in. And it's also really a big part of self-care. And when we talk about the need for self-care, it's really that parasympathetic system. So, right, we intuitively know we need to take care of our mental kitchen. We need to wipe it down, we need to clean it up regularly, but we also need this discerning work because, and this is true, you're complex. And so it's not like you're just going to take the world at its face value. You're going to do discerning. Is this what I think it is? And in that constant process, that's why meditation and mindfulness are just at their core asking us to clean off and wash the counter in your mind. Give it some blank space. So when you're looking at clutter in that kitchen area, the other thing I remind people is that place is for processing and creating. Our mind is often filled with appliances of old thoughts that are reconstituted. So we got to look at what's taken up that space on your kitchen counter in your mind, right? What are the emotional appliances? They aren't inherently bad. I'm never saying that they're bad, but they're designed to process things that already exist. And they're not designed to create something totally new. This is not growth, right? The kitchen counter of your mind is just where you set stuff. So like the coffee maker or the toaster or the blender or the juicer or that pretty little thing that you bought, right? Or that's where you toss your keys and, all of it. It's just all of it. And so when you look at that coffee maker and toaster of your mindset, they make exciting beans or bread. You can heat things up. You can reconstitute them and make them quickly usable. And that in our mind is often our old patterns and our borrowed beliefs that we just keep reheating over and over again. And what I mean by that is, and this happens a lot. I mean, the more that we talk about this, the more you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's totally it. Because we are picking up stuff that we might have picked up in childhood, right? A thought that we're reheating from childhood. I'm not good at that, or I don't like this, or this isn't working, right? There's a lot of childhood things that we're reheating all the time. Then it's often this belief that we picked up that we're just setting on our counter, that the world works in a certain way. And then you have this other part, right? Which is that I should always feel a certain way about something, right? That's that quick emotional response that we pull out of the drawer. And that's what I mean. It's really old patterns and we're just dragging them out on that counter. And when I think about that blender, right, a blender takes existing ingredients, your past experiences, your old data, and it blends them up into smoothing them out into some familiar consistency. We do this when we just use our existing thoughts to justify new situations, right? A lot of times we're preventing ourselves from seeing the newness of the moment. It's just like when you're driving, right? You don't even know that you're even driving that route anymore. You're not looking at the newness of the moment anymore. And when these appliances in your, on your kitchen counter are industrious, they're super useful. They're quick, right? But they're always a reminder of the past. So the more you can learn to clean off that counter, to just tuck it away for a while. Like, do I have to think about this through that lens? So you're trying to, really give yourself the gift of empty space. And that is really around, right, creating an open workspace where you can create a wide open counter. I mean, it just invites you, right, to work the dough, to chop up big ideas, to just simply set new things down and see them more clearly, right? For me, sometimes I will set down, this is a real literal thing, but I just think fruit is beautiful. So sometimes I will just set the fruit on my counter, which is always cleaned off, and go, oh, wow, what beautiful fruit. And there are a lot of ways that you can give yourself that counter space, because it also makes it so that you can really start to be ready for a life of renewal. So cleaning your kitchen counter off absolutely takes courage. If we're afraid to let go of things in our mental order, because sometimes empty space feels like actual emptiness. If it looks bare and foreign, we're like kind of worried, right? Oh gosh, there's nothing here. I remember somebody saying, like, I don't have any problems. I don't even know what to do with that. I'm like, enjoy it. Enjoy it. We've been conditioned to believe that our mind should always be full. We like that right there is like, you must have a full kitchen counter. But the truth is, a clean counter is the sign of a life that is ready for renewal. So you kind of got to start working around tucking away sometimes your religious background and your educational background. And I don't mean discarding them. I'm saying just set them aside for a moment. Can you look at an issue without an automatic framework of these beliefs that you really hold deeply? And can you consider an idea without the immediate filter of like all the education that you wish were still true? The world is changing. the world is changing. And anytime you can kind of tuck it into a drawer and look at an issue with fresh eyes, that's also innovation. You could always pull them back out when you need them, and they're informed perspective. I mean, they're an informed perspective, but they may not be the perspective that you need to have to take up permanent, non-negotiable counter space. Sometimes you can just be a little freer if you just, that's what going to the movies is like, right? One of the reasons that movies are so successful is that we are willing to suspend the reality that we think we live in. And that is what you're asking, is like, can I just set down my existing reality and just experience what it is? And that's also about making room for the temporary. One of the beautiful things that you can set on a beautiful clean counter, a vase of fresh flowers, right? They're alive, they're vibrant, and they're temporary. They remind us that life is temporary. Our emotions, our situations, and all of our perspectives. That's the abundance for today. And a clean counter is going to give you space for that temporary, abundant joy. And that's powerful. And what I like about that is that that's where clarity comes in. That's where you get this ability to have attention to detail. It's where you have another layer of truthfulness. It's where you can kind of have some quality time with your integrity. Like, how does it feel? How are you perceiving this? And then there's the vibrancy, right? That we forget to be dazzled by all of the things that are kind of great right now because we don't actually reflect on how great they are. If you are just sitting outside one day, just, look at the actual living world around you and the colorfulness and the blossoming of life. It is its own experience. And when you can come at that experience also with like childlike wonder, right? That you can go, oh, this is really cool. And that's where you get discernment, right? The goal isn't to have like this white space, sterile kitchen counter of life. The goal of cleaning off your kitchen counter is discernment. And that's the act of deciding, like, what are the tools I need right now? What tools should I put away? What thoughts belong to me and which ones did I pick from somebody else? How much stuff am I reconstituting from someone else? What do I actually believe? And when your kitchen counter is clean, you can just pull out the only tool you need. You can use it deliberately, and then you can put it away. And then you move away from that life of automatically processing into a life of intentional creation. Now, let me say that again, right? The benefit of discernment in that kitchen counter of life model is you are going to move away from just automatically processing everything. And then you're going to move into a place of intentional creation because there's space for you. It's not about having nothing. It's about having space for anything. It is the clarity to see the abundance of today. It's the open room that you can start baking up the next parts of your life, or to just enjoy the life that you have. There's every night, I will tell you, I'm actually a pretty good cook. And I kind of avoided in my marriage letting my husband know that I was a good cook because I didn't really want it expected of me all the time. So, but now years and years and years have gone by and we had COVID. So I had to be the person to cook. And one of the things about that is that every night, almost every night, I'm sitting down at a beautiful table because I had decided, you know what, I'm just going to make a beautiful dinner because I know how. Let me just put a little effort in. And every time we sit down, I literally look at our food and our table setting, our beautiful night, that we are still alive and healthy. And I go, we live like royalty every day. It's like my family 100 years ago would have begged for any meal. Like Tuesday night is like Christmas around our house. So when you're looking at this kitchen counter of your mind, you want to remember all the parts of you, right? That we want to kind of get away from that anxiety of the clutter. And when we have too much junk laying around in our mind, it is clutter. We have to remind ourselves that that kitchen, that's the center of sustenance. That's who we are. And it is a central part of self-care. And we want to get out of processing all this existing stuff and get to creating. So, and stop those emotional appliances from just running and running and regurgitating and regurgitating and regurgitating. Because once you kind of put those things away, you really start to realize that, right, there's a lot of claustrophobic thought of not having a workspace, right? That you will just feel mental fatigue and claustrophobic anxiety when there's nowhere to work. Like, I don't even know where to begin. Gosh, I mean, how could I get a fresh thought in a pile of stuff? So, we're looking to go, what can I tuck away? What can I put away for, I don't have to think about that today. For me, having children, I'm like, I'm not going to think about, our children are grown up. They don't, I think about them all the time because I'm used to doing that. But you know what? They have their own families now. I don't need to think about them all the time. I can think about maybe a fresh vase of flowers and my emotions and my situations. And that, even paying attention to the abundance of today. And that's what I hope for you. So as you are kind of drifting off tonight, I hope you just take a little inventory of your mental counter and think about the clunkiest appliances that are running constantly and maybe need to get unplugged and put away. And what are the old reheated thoughts that you just keep mixing them up and again and again and again, right? Like we kind of are on a hamster wheel on some of our thoughts. And, can you discard them? A clean counter is a revolutionary act. And it is the beginning of a life of renewal. So as you're going forward today, tonight, as you're dreaming, take that minute to, kind of bring that strength into your mind of making space for clarity. And I think you'll find it really effective and nourishing. And I hope that you actually kind of find it illuminating. I think it's illuminating to go, wow, there's a whole radiance in the world that I was tuning out because I was so busy paying attention to this old clutter. And that's kind of how cleaning out our mindset actually teaches us these other pieces of knowledge. So, when we talk about meditation and enlightenment and